Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the November 17th Board of Health meeting. It is 6:02 p.m. This agenda is subject to change and includes those items reasonably anticipated by the chair to be discussed at the meeting. Not all agenda items may be in fact discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up to the extent permitted by law. And as you heard from Connor, we are being recorded through our local cable access channel, WACA-TV, and this could be aired multiple times. All right, anybody on the meeting tonight for citizens participation? Oh, okay. Before we
and I guess I could be a citizen.
I was just, no, listen, see, Mark, you have to wait to be called on. I was just gonna say, before we move on, obviously the board knows, and hopefully people in the public know that Mark Oram, our health director, retired this past Friday after almost 38 years of service for the town of Ashland. I don't want to get choked up. I've already seen Mark and I've shed a couple tears. I worked with Mark for 24 years, so it was bittersweet. I'm a little jealous, to be honest with you. So, Mark, I know
you're not that old yet.
Yeah. But I know Mark chose to be on the meeting. He wanted to come and see the board. And of course, we wanted to recognize him publicly. So
Definitely.
With that, I will turn it over to you.
Well, I want to thank the entire board. It's been a long time with many board members. And I want to thank the present board members for all the hard work that you do too. It's not easy when you're in an elected position because you see the residents on a daily basis, on weekends. So I can respect what you're up against at all times. So I want to thank you for your support as well as for being partners in this very, very busy world of public health. It seems like every time you turn around, there's another public health issue. So thank you for allowing me to serve for you as your agent. And I will miss it. It takes a little while to get used to retirement. But as I noted, to Diane as well as to Laura, please call on me for anything. I know Ed too.
Mark, you're breaking up a little bit.
H1N1. I'm available to help whenever you need. Okay, I was just going to say I'm just a call away, so feel free to call me with any assistance you may need.
And I already did today.
And that's okay. That's a good thing. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for your service.
You're welcome.
I was gonna say,
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Mark you're gonna stay on the meeting though tonight because
Yeah,
first week of retirement, there's nothing to do on a Tuesday.
No problem. Any of it, just let me know. I'd be glad to help if it's.
And I'm just kidding with you, Mark. I know.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, again, Mark, thank you very much, and it's been an interesting ride for me for 30 years, and for you almost 38. So Thank you again.
Goes fast.
All right, moving along. Ed, Sergeant Berman, you want to?
And Mark DeSoni wanted to speak also.
Oh, okay, Mark. Did you want to say something? Oh, you're on mute, Mark. There you go.
Not anymore. Okay, thank you. Good evening. And yes, I was told. Thank you, KG, for mentioning it last week. I outdid another Mark. Hanging around, and now you got to retire. One bookend's gone. I want you to speak back to me, Mr. Oram.
He's speechless, Mark.
I want you to speak back to me. Unmute yourself, please.
You guys can have your own Zoom meeting.
I will always be happy to answer your questions, Mark. You know that.
Still, this is keep yourself on mute. I want to hear your wait a second. Are you sure about that?
Not necessary.
This is going to be all positive, all sense of humor, I hope. But yes, I did. I'm outlasted another one. It seems like they come in the office before I do, and I just stay longer than they ever do. Mr. Mark, the bookends now has only one end to hold up the everything now. Every time there's a mark in the room, that I gotta know it's going to be me now.
Yes, you're very fortunate.
And throughout the years that we have known each other, we kind of understand that the town got better and more interesting when we both get together and understand what's going on together. And I am gonna not miss you, but I'm gonna just say Nyanza is not gonna be the same without you.
Oh, geez. Well, I'm glad you brought up Nyanza, and I mentioned it to some of my fellows last week. That has been one of my major, as all of us know, one of our major projects within the town, and I'm glad I could be part of any support that I could offer to all the families that have been involved with Nyanza, and anything I could do to help with Nyanza. I always wanted to be able to do the best I could for all the people in Ashland. So thank you for bringing that up, Mark.
And I'm also going to bring up one of the most positive things that you did for the town was the H1N1 flu clinic that we had here years ago. You and when she was here, Kitty Mahoney, a 1-2 punch on that clinic we had at the old middle high school. That's one of your accomplishments that you should feel proud of too.
Yes, I am.
And another one for the town itself, it has for you, would be the Green Up Ashland.
Yep, another great project. Yes.
See, even though you're retired, legacy is going to keep up with you, and that's the other end of the bookend that we're all going to keep proud of for you to keep up with. So good luck in your retirement. This Mark's going to carry on, but I'm going to think of the Mark that's retiring and say, I can't retire just yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark DeSoni.
Thank you.
All right, Sergeant.
Diane, before you jump into it,
Sure.
is the irrigation wells people are still here or no?
They are not. Nope.
No. Is that going to be on or off?
It's going to be off. I will notify the board when we get there, and I'll just talk about a couple of things.
But there may be people waiting for that. Maybe we want to announce that.
Nope. Courtney Arsenault is here for 313 Cedar,
Okay.
and Barry and Brian are here for the IMA.
Okay, so there's nobody else that seems to be here. Okay, that's fine.
Yep,
Thank you.
Yep. Are we good?
We're good.
Chris, I love the background. Sergeant Berman.
Well, what do you want to know?
A quick overview.
Quick overview. Yeah, so I just want to let everybody know something. So a few things. I'll be quick because I know you'll probably have a lot of questions because there's so much going on. So as you know, we have our own testing machine, which has proved to be invaluable for our town employees. We did place an order almost 4 weeks ago for additional test kits. And of course, Abbott is back ordered because everybody has this machine now. I have 5 test kits left. And I called the rep again today to find out where our order is. She says, it's in the queue. That's the answer I get. But ironically, today, I found out that the state lab is using the same test machines at Hinton, the Hinton building in Jamaica Plain. So I made a call and I spoke to the laboratory supervisor, and she's actually going to give me a case. So, and then when mine comes in, I'll replace theirs. So that way we don't run out, hopefully. So I'm just going to drive in tomorrow to grab that. So that'll give us 24 additional tests in the meantime, hopefully, and then our order will come in. Obviously you must realize our numbers are up. And again, but a majority of our numbers are in these little, I'll call them little clusters, where people, and it's definitely, we're tracing them back to gatherings that are happening in the community. Very, and I would tell you right now, probably 50% of our open cases are due to gatherings, and we've been able to trace it that way. I did want to also report that the residents at Valley Farm has been doing, obviously, random testing like the nursing homes are supposed to. They did have 2 positive employees this week. They were immediately removed from the building. They were confined to one area. And then what the residents at Valley Farm did yesterday was they tested everybody else in that unit. Same thing happened at Waterview Lodge. 1 employee tested positive, and tomorrow they are testing the entire building again. So I really want to give a kudos to, since since this all started, at the beginning, the lines of communication were not there. And, I really want to give kudos to both facilities, especially, I get pretty much weekly calls from them just with updates. And I think that's proven valuable. Working with the schools every day. We back and forth every single day. Audrey and I are on the phone every day by 7:30 in the morning, 7 days a week. And we're keeping all of our communication open so that we know what's happening in the schools and vice versa. And that's working out really well also. We're able to quickly get any kids that potentially were close contacts into quarantine. Getting them to abide by the quarantine, that's a little different. We're working on that too. But every day's busy, and you all know when something big, I call you and let you know. That's a quick update because I know you guys have a good size agenda tonight.
Thank you, Ed. Does anybody have any questions for Ed?
Just one. Ed, thanks, Diane. How many tests have we used?
So we originally we had 72, and I have 5 left. Yep.
So there's 24 in a case, Ed?
Correct.
Thank you.
And 72 lasted how long?
So we went live the 3rd week in September.
And those were all used for town employees.
Yeah.
Just employees, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not for the general public.
Correct.
Okay.
So just playing out a scenario, let's say there was one person came to work that was sick, one department could have 20 or so, or, right?
Yeah, so obviously a majority of them were used at the schools. We've had a couple of scenarios where maybe a student tested positive and some of the teachers were uncomfortable, even though they really may have not been close contacts. So, we test them. We did have a scenario where a town employee needed to leave the state for a family emergency. And when he came back, he couldn't get to a testing site anywhere. So we were able to test him to get him back to work instead of him being out for 14 days. So it's different things like that. Every scenario is a little bit different.
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome.
I do have one question, sorry. I guess this is my second, I apologize. I have a concern about I know you're in touch with the superintendent every day. I have a concern about the heating systems at the school now that we're going to shut the windows and everything. So were there any special things for COVID that schools had to do? And if so, are they completed here in Ashland?
Yeah, so Judy, I don't know if it's completed yet, but they've been purchasing these specialized HEPA pure air filters. And I know they've been deployed throughout most of the buildings. Like today I was in Audrey's office. She's got one in her office, and I was in, a couple of different classrooms. They're there. I don't know if it's completed yet. I did see the shipment come in. There's hundreds of them. Okay. So I know they're being deployed.
Okay.
And Judy, I do know that they have changed the air circulation in each building.
Okay.
So I know that even on election day, people were complaining it was cold because they have the air flowing all the time.
Good.
So I know that they have increased that. And again, it's probably costing us a fortune, but obviously it's healthier. But I know that they do that.
Right. Okay. I know, like when they did the test at the Warren School and we had those questions, I know that wasn't really great air quality to begin with. So I was a little worried. Okay.
Yep.
Chris, you have a question?
Yep. It's been a couple weeks since we've done this, and I don't know about my colleagues on the board, but I get to ask this question a million times what the current quarantining requirements are, in particular when someone tests positive, but just in general.
Yep. So, okay. So if you test positive, and there's two different scenarios with a positive case. If you go and get tested because you're symptomatic, your 10 days of isolation starts on your first day of symptoms. But with our contact tracing, we have to go back 48 hours for the close contacts from the onset of symptoms. Okay? But otherwise, from your symptom onset date, 10 days is your isolation period. On day 10, we're going to call you. If you have been symptom-free for the previous 24 hours, you will be released from isolation. Now, your close contacts, and again, a close contact, the definition has changed a few times. A close contact is within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more, but that 15 minutes is cumulative over a 24-hour period. So if you were with that person 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes, that's your 15 minutes. So if you've been deemed a close contact, then you must go into quarantine for 14 days. Now, this is where people get a little, where the confusion sometimes comes into play. The first, if you're exposed to someone, for example, yesterday that was positive, that is day 0 for you. So your first day of quarantine would start today. Now, in 5 days, if you have contact again with that positive person, your 14 days starts all over again. So sometimes, like for example, if you've got a 1 or a 2-year-old that's positive and you're the mother, obviously your 14 days cannot start till after that 10-day period. So that's where people get a little crazy because they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be in quarantine for 24 days. It happens. The other thing I also like to remind people is if you are exposed to COVID and you are asymptomatic, if you're exposed today, do not go get tested tomorrow. You will be negative. The optimal test date is day 5 from the exposure.
Okay. Ed, you're making me remember a conversation that we had a few days ago. I apologize for taking so much of your time, but we had a conversation about what to do about the fact that you're saying you're putting people in quarantine, you're calling them, in the case of it's a kid, for instance, in high school, you're notifying the parent that the child needs to stay home for 14 days. And you personally have experienced somebody that you had told the parent that the child was to stay home for 14 days and the child was out and about and walked into a place where you were. What can we do about the fact that parents are not following the rules and keeping their kids inside?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually something I was going to ask Laura to look into a little bit, to check with some other towns to see if they're doing any fining or different things like that. But one of the things that, unfortunately, I've seen it more than once, and I don't know what to do.
That really,
it's frustrating.
Remind them again, saying that their misbehavior is going to affect the entire town, particularly school-going children means it's going to affect the school. And that's where we need to put an interest to make sure the children attend the school and get the education they need within the limitation that we have. So remind them that they will be the reason for it.
I've seen both ends of this, Ed. I've seen, what you're talking about where you're calling parents, you're telling them your kid has to stay in for 14 days and they're out jogging or they're out getting a haircut or they're out doing whatever they want to do and ignoring it. Or to the other extreme, I know of a situation where a parent was shamed during a game because people thought that he was still supposed to be in quarantine, and the shaming went on. So it's like, I don't know what the middle ground is, but I really think if you can think of something like to bring for the board, like I'm like really bothered, especially, I know the high school kids are having parties. I know this is going on. I think we all do. We were all kids, and that doesn't stop it. And when you're a kid, you don't think that anything's going to happen to you. When you're an adult, everything happens to you. So if you can just think of something. I'm really perplexed about it.
Yeah, I do know that one, I don't remember what town it was. I can look it up. There's one town that they're actually now citing families a $500 fine for hosting party over 10 people. So maybe that's something we should look at too.
Do you think what's going on? Are you aware of like parties?
From what I'm hearing, I can guarantee it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Like I said, we give out so much information daily between myself, the school nurses. I mean, we're on the phone every day, all day.
I heard on the news today, it was in the background, so I'm going to say I may have heard it incorrectly, but I think it was correct, that there is a town that are asking residents to sign a form guaranteeing that their Thanksgiving celebration, if they have one, is not going to be more than 10 people.
Littleton.
Okay, so yeah, I did hear it correctly.
Well, something we had talked about, Chris, Ed and I, was like, once you call a parent and tell them your child has to stay in for 14 days, I said, can we then email them something that they have to email back, like with an electronic signature that, I understand what I'm supposed to do here, because I said, maybe they're not understanding. And he said, no, I made it clear. So maybe they need a piece of paper in front of them to show their kid that says, this is what I signed. You can't.
And Judy, everybody that we put into either quarantine or isolation gets an email from us with the quarantine and isolation information.
Okay.
They get it.
Yeah.
They don't acknowledge receipt, or?
No, they don't. They don't.
I was just going to say, who's going to go and have them sign it?
I know. I know. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Listen, we have to get ready. Hey, listen, I'm hoping this whole vaccine thing moves forward. I mean, I'm ready to go.
Right up your alley, Ed.
I'm ready to go.
All right, Ed, if you're all set, we're going to move on because we do have a busy agenda. You're welcome to stay on. Again, I know it's Tuesday. There's not a lot going on. Feel free to stick around.
Thank you, Ed, for everything.
All right, everyone. We have Courtney Arsenault. She is at 6:15. I apologize for a few minutes late. She is at 313 Cedar Street. She is looking for a waiver for the animal regulations. Courtney has over an acre of land, and our regulations that I know we've talked about updating is very antiquated. So Donna and I did a site visit. I sent out an email. Hopefully everybody I got it. So Donna will speak, but it was very interesting. Me, I had a pen and paper, and they're chewing on my paper. It was kind of fun. So, if Courtney, you want to just give an overview of what you do and your property, that would be awesome.
Thank you. So I'm Courtney Arsenault, and thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. So I am requesting a waiver for the animals that I started including years and years and years ago when I first opened my preschool program back in 2006 and started looking at what I wanted to incorporate educationally for children, and taking care of animals was one of those things. And I had young children of my own, and just what they were getting from that and benefiting from it. So at the time I had looked into the zoning laws, and that was a way back while. And I remember that things were being looked at. There was a family child care program that was up the street. And so I attended a bunch of meetings because she had wanted to open a family open a daycare, and she had a family child care. So she was looking to increase it. So I was sort of looking at the guidelines when that was all sort of going on. And we included rabbits, we included chickens, we included goats, and my understanding, and again, after looking at the bylaws, and I had looked for them, was that, and they did seem very big, and there was no way that I was, or large, I guess. So for over an acre of land, one of the things that I had noticed on there was that it was, you could have 200 poultry or 200 rabbits and 2 farm animals. And clearly 200 seemed quite excessive. And we were not looking to have anything near there. So we did go within those guidelines and proceed forward with what I wanted to do with my education program. And so I offer programs still where children learn agricultural pieces and how to care for animals and how the animals help our environment and that social emotional piece and how it's all interconnected and it's related. And my daughter actually gained a love from being here and didn't go to Ashland High School. She went to Norfolk Aggie, where she studied animal science and is now up at UNH, and she is studying applied animal science up there. So I think it's just really important, the experiences that it's given and all the feedback that I've gotten from parents and from children being part of this and what it gives to us. And so that's pretty much what, and so I did only have those 2 animals, those farm animals. And then things sort of shifted in this crazy world, and the neighbors started coming and seeing the animals and talking about whether or not they could feed the animals. And I got a lot of positive feedback from parents that it was really helping them with COVID and what was going on. And our goats did have more babies, and we did get rid of other babies that they had as well, and then chose to keep some based on the feedback that we were getting sort of from the neighborhood. And then I started looking and thinking about the business piece and the educational piece and whether or not that was something that we could move forward in being allowed to have more than we had. So that's where we are right now today. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Before we go on to questions, I just want to, Donna, if you want to just give a quick, just your perspective, please. Those darn mute buttons, I know. That's okay, she'll.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you,
Yes.
but you can't see you, but that's okay. Go ahead, Donna. Oh, hi. So I just want to say it was, you know, I'm an animal lover of, you know, all kinds of animals, but I did learn a lot when I went to the site visit. So I just want to say that in the letter you requested, you have 6 goats and they're considered Norwegian dwarf. Is that what they call it? Okay, so they're smaller goats, just so the board knows. But and then
Yeah, they're very small. They're no bigger than, like, my dog is actually bigger than they are.
Yeah, she's back now. No, she's off again.
like I said, I was impressed just the setup of it, but I was like, they really liked my notepad, they liked my pen, they liked my code. It was pretty interesting.
I'm pretty impressed with the packet and the support.
There we go. Now I'm
There
on.
was more that came in today. You probably saw it.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Donna.
Hi. I don't know what's going on with this. I couldn't get in on my iPad for some reason. It was asking for a code that I didn't have. So I'm on my phone.
Okay.
So we did go Friday and check the farm that Courtney has. The animals all look good. The housing is adequate. There is enough space for them. They have plenty of room. The fencing seemed adequate. I didn't really see any problems as from the animal standpoint. Everything looked good.
Thank you, Donna. Does anybody have any questions for Courtney or Donna?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for Courtney, I guess.
Okay,
And it's a good piece of property as well as good piece of activity that children needed, particularly at this time of the year and this season. The only thing is that I just want to make sure that they have sanitizing liquids as soon as they pet the zoos and walk out. They are cared for, because I believe there are pathogens and things like that that they could carry on from the animals to the people. So especially the children who may not be able to control their activity of wiping the hands or putting it on the face or something. So if you can provide that item on it, that's a healthy thing to do.
Yes, and I
The-
definitely do. So there's hand sanitizer that I carry on me at all times.
Right. And then you may want to explore if there is any state requirement also, because I don't know that. So check with the state and see whether any requirement, and comply with whatever that the requirements are. And the other thing that I have is that your property probably could be close to some wetland area. So just knock on Megan Megan DeSantis' phone number here. She's the Concom agent, so she'll be able to clear that, so that once you clear it, you have something on record saying that you checked with it, so that you don't have to worry about it. All right.
yes, so KG, I know KG is also on the Conservation Commission, excuse me. I did talk to Megan at the end of today. These are just things, Courtney, that we check every time somebody applies. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you know in the back part, I'm not sure if it's actually on your property or the back.
Yeah,
Yeah. So her concern was more that because it's not a permanent structure, as long as you don't build
Right.
the permanent structures on the property, put any type of foundation, as she calls it, building and construction, then it would have to be reviewed by conservation.
Right. The only reason that I suggest is that at least she has something on record saying that she checked with it. So it's better to finish it off rather than putting it off, saying that people shouldn't complain tomorrow, saying, how come you didn't check with this?
Yep.
So it's probably all clear, but it's better to check with her to make sure that you have an official okay from her. There's nothing to worry about it. As Diane said, that if there is a construction going on,
Right,
that's when you get involved.
Yeah.
But you also have indicated that the animal waste is being reused right there.
Mhm.
So sometimes it depends on how the rainwater flows into the system. So things may be carried onto the wetlands and things like. So that's why they wanted to make sure that one too. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, KG.
Good service for the community.
Oh, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for
I do.
Courtney? Okay.
This might actually be for Donna or for whoever would know the answer. Courtney might know it too, because she's requesting the waiver. Can you clear us up specifically on the part of the regulation that we're waiving? What is the regulation saying? What are we waiving about it?
The section that we would be taking a vote on is section 8.2 under our keeping of animal regulations. One of the recommendations that Donna and I spoke about was what basically she has now, because it is over the limit, we would actually put that in the vote. So the amount of animals she has, we would restrict it to that. And
It's quantity. It's
Correct.
quantity. Okay.
Exactly. I'm sorry. It's quantity based on acreage.
I got you. Okay.
And then Donna, correct me if I'm wrong. I couldn't recall. The bunnies would be under the permit as well, right? So we'd have to include the bunnies.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Courtney, how many bunnies do you have?
6.
So we would include those numbers as part of the vote. And again, I know Courtney agreed that, she's not looking at getting any more, not expanding, so.
But bunnies multiply fast.
Yeah, well, they're kept separate. It's very controlled, and most of the bunnies do find their forever homes. And it just COVID kind of changed it. So I do have 2 little bunnies that are still in the process of finding their forever homes.
How many goats is it over? How many, is it a total thing that we're like, how many are you allowed versus how many she has?
Well, the regulations had changed, and Diane can definitely go into this. So it's right now, the way the regulations are written is that if you have over an acre of land, you can have 20 poultry or 2 farm animals. And I'm asking for a waiver to keep the poultry that I have 32. which includes chickens and ducks, and then keep the 6 farm animals as well. And then the bunnies, I guess, fall into that as well.
Does anybody know what the rationale behind that regulation, why that was limited to that number?
It actually goes back in my day when I worked for the Board of Health. I don't know the rationalization where the numbers came from. I believe our zoning bylaw, we have a zoning bylaw as well that basically has the same numbers. It might have been to stay in line with that, but I know Donna and I spoke, again, she educated me on it, is, you're going to have you're going to have 2 goats, or you might have 2 horses or something. So I talked to Donna. I think this is one of those regulations that we should review as well, because it's time to review and update it. So
Donna, I'm going to say, without having been there, but reading all this information, that Courtney is doing a bang up job of keeping these animals, and the neighbors love it, and it's just wonderful. But I'm thinking that if somebody came into us another day with this many over what's allowed, and they weren't doing as good a job, are we caught in a quandary as far as if we pay for one?
The way that the bylaw reads, if you have more than an acre of land, it's really up to the Board of Health and the animal control officer to determine how many farm animals.
2 acres.
No,
Right. But we should probably have, if we're going to review, we should probably have that for any amount of land, because the problem that you face is that once you waive somebody's, and I have no problem with the waiver here, but you might get somebody with a half an acre of land that has 6 goats, or, wants a whole bunch of chickens, and they live in a much tightly, more, confined area that we probably wouldn't want to grant a waiver for. So you really kind of need to leave it open-ended. I think that it would be up to the board's decision as to how many you can have.
Right, but if it says up to the board discretion, then if you don't have a guideline for it, then it becomes a problem. Then they would say, you allowed this person, you didn't allow that person. Another point for Diana. Is the zoning bylaw still exist for this or no?
Yes, but it's I don't want to talk about the zoning bylaw, and I
no. The reason is that if that exists, does required to go to the zoning and then
I don't know. Like I'm like, I think this is great. I think what you're doing is great. I love, all the neighbors love it. I love the kids are getting so much out of it. My concern is, and I need Diane or Donna to answer to me, if somebody else comes in with this amount over, are we going to be legally pressed to be able to approve this for anybody?
Everybody's if
I think as the animal inspector, I have a duty to refuse.
Right, and they have a right to ask.
To let you know that there's a problem, and no, we shouldn't grant the waiver. I think, I don't really want, the whole decision to be on my shoulders, but as the animal inspector, it can't, it is in fact, my determination whether or not you should grant a waiver, and that would depend on the amount of land they have, the care of the animals, and how they're kept, their housing.
That is all specified in the guideline to us in the regulation, isn't it?
So it does. It spells it out in the regulations, KG, about what the amount is
right,
per
that
land.
I understand, but as Judy asked, if somebody comes up with similar numbers, and how would I say no to them if I say yes for?
I think if we document,
I feel very comfortable with this because.
No, not feeling comfortable is not an issue. The question is, what will happen to the other person who comes in? Do we apply a uniform standard or not? That's
KG, hang tight for a minute. What I'm saying is everyone has a right to ask for a waiver.
Right.
It's this forum that we all need to review whether it's granted or not.
Right.
If Donna went to, I'll just say, if Donna went to a property and things were not up to par, she's going to tell us. So if there was a situation going on, we would deny a waiver until things are where they need to be. So
And that, in fact, that wouldn't only just fall on the animal inspector. That now shifts over to the animal control officer. And that's different powers that I would have because the animals are not cared for.
Right.
So in that sense, it would not go under the Board of Health. It would go under the police department. As to
they
whether
still,
or not,
we have, our regulations require that we hold a hearing within a request for a hearing within a certain period of time. So no matter what, if somebody came in front of us and we're not comfortable with that waiver, I mean, let's face it, people sue for anything. I can't imagine anybody would challenge us, but I mean, people have a right to challenge us if we didn't think something was appropriate.
You know, Judy's question I thought was a great one, but it triggered another one for me. Is that so? I'm comfortable with saying, okay, well, we gave a waiver based on the animal control officer's recommendation and the board's recommendations and conditions and all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of comfortable with that because at least if it's written into the bylaw that's the caveat that has to go onto it, then that's really what someone else comes with and we can provide them. But my bigger concern is the just reproduction, right? We know that rabbits can reproduce very quickly and exponentially, and it may not be the intent of the situation, but now, you know, if you've got 6 rabbits and then, you know, all of a sudden you've got 20 rabbits, how do we control that? What part?
we have to put limits.
Uh-huh.
The numbers, you have to put limits on the numbers. I think would be the only
And then
way.
the
Right,
permit
and
itself would
who-
say what the limits are, and then
Who is
Donna,
monitoring that?
well, Donna does
Well, I
inspection.
have to monitor it every year. I have to, by
So,
law.
I
have
mean,
to go in and inspect.
you know, the rabbit's rate of reproduction is much more than 1 year period.
Right.
is there any-
I
It's
do
much
understand that, but we don't.
Well,
Our
we don't-
rabbits aren't kept together. The males and females are not kept together.
Is there anything in any bylaw statewide anywhere where you might say in a situation like this, we would require that the rabbits be spayed or neutered?
There's nothing in the bylaw,
Okay.
but yeah, I don't know if you could make that as a
Something looking, but
Well,
part
now
of this,
that's like an
unrelated to-
uncomfortable zone for me. That's
Yeah.
like, that's like
unrelated to
saying
this
you have to
specific,
stay new to your dog. I mean, it's that.
right.
I don't think-
Unrelated
Right.
to this specific case, I think one of the things we have to look at as a board is, since this is the second now request for a waiver for
Right,
animals
yep.
that we've had in a couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
that I think once we start looking at a bylaw that
You're gonna get a
we're
lot of-
requesting consistent waivers, we got to review them in general. But
Mhm.
I do want to tag on to what Judy said, that Courtney, I read the documentation and it's a great job. I mean,
Thank
it's
you.
fantastic. You know, when you got 30 animals sitting in your backyard and your neighbors say we're glad they're there, that means something. It really does.
Looking at the document, one of the letter from one of the neighbors doesn't have the address. Kindly put that one on the documentation and provide it to them.
Laura can look it up and put it under.
Yeah. Keep it on the record that we know
Okay.
who knows it is. That's all.
Yeah, all right. With all this said, do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I
Just had-
think
I had a
Ron has-
Brian, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
thanks, Di. Yeah, so this is either for Courtney or Diane or Donna. I'm just wondering when you became aware of the regulation and how long ago, since you became aware of the regulation, has it been out of compliance or in compliance with the regulation as written now?
I had renewed my business license and then was looking to incorporate, and I was just informed of the change in the regulations after I did that a month ago.
I would say October 23rd is your letter, so it's around that date.
Yeah, so
You
it was
didn't-
like, as
you
soon as
didn't need
I found
anything
out,
before this because those bylaws were made in 2008.
Mhm.
yes, and so that's but when I had researched and done all this and opened my preschool in 2006, I
Yeah.
had looked at the bylaws. Now this, I'm gonna say honestly, I didn't go back and look to see if anything had changed
Right.
because I had that bylaw in my head.
Yeah.
And I had I didn't realize that it had changed. I
And
didn't.
I think when she got her DBA, what DBA is every 4 years?
I've had my
Every 4
DBA.
years.
I had my DBA since 2006, but then I was going in post COVID to renew it, and I did that, and then that's when things started to come to my attention, and there was concern being raised, and I was like, oh, okay. And so then I started researching the regulations, and I was like, wow, like that's very different from what I had started my research and started my program back in 2006. And I was like, I mean, clearly I understand why the regulations were changed from 200 and to what it was, but I was like, that is very different. And so I started, based on the information that I was getting and the concern that I was getting, just getting documents from my neighbors, getting information so that I could request the waiver and get you the information that you needed.
And yeah, thank you for that. And I completely agree with, Judy's sentiments and Chris's as well. And the letters were glowing. Obviously it's a great service. People love it. I think one of the things that we can consider then, kind of like we did for the mobile station when we granted them a waiver to be within 500 feet of a school, is to set new limits if we're going to revisit this. And basically, I think we could give Courtney a waiver based upon whatever she has now and limit it, if we're going to do that, to the numbers that she has now, 6 goats, 32 fowl, and then make new limits that we're going to put into effect and say that these can't be exceeded, just like we did for the tobacco, to be able to sell that business. We wanted to be fair to
That was grandfathered. This is not grandfathered here, because we already have a regulation, so we are waiving that request. So the new regulation that we are going to have should
Right.
contain at least this much minimum numbers, so that these people are grandfathered.
Well,
Subsequent.
I'm going to
that's
jump
what
in
I
here.
mean. But
Yeah. Yes.
those regulations were after she was actually started. I mean, I don't know. That's why I was asking when she went over the limits, just to get a timeline.
Right.
Did she have 6 goats 5 years ago, or is that just, so,
That's just,
right.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, though. I'm all for granting this waiver, but I think that where we could get in trouble if we start quantifying the regulation based on these numbers is if we start researching what the new waiver should be, and we go into and get professional opinions from animal control experts and veterinarian, the farming community, all that kind of stuff. And let's just say the numbers say, there's a very strong reason that the numbers should be less. We don't want to write into a new regulation or write into a waiver that it's okay to have significantly more. I think that it should always be under review, just in case. It's probably unlikely, but we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we could allow someone to have a waiver for a situation that could potentially later be deemed as unsafe
A
or dangerous.
Westport. Right. You don't want to end up with a Westport on your hands.
So there's 43 animals, if my addition is correct. 43,
including the rabbits. Yeah.
including the rabbits, correct? So if somebody has the normal amount, they're
So 10, 30, 37, is 37?
31 plus 6,
Oh, no, I'm counting, sorry. You're right, yes.
43?
No, 10, 37.
Six
Yeah.
goats,
Yep,
31, right?
yes.
Okay. So here's my question to Donna. I'm trying to find you on the, if somebody has a lot less than this, they pay this fee of, I think she paid $38. It looks like. So could we, if we do this, make it so that she would pay more than that? So you could do 2 visits a year because she has so many animals just to keep.
So
Well,
we would just, a
the
couple of
state-
things. We would have
the
to change our
state
fee
mandates that.
schedule before we could start. We can't do that. I mean,
So we can't approve her for 6 months and then she reapplies every 6 months, so to speak.
No, it's an
No.
annual license and we would have to change our fee schedule.
Okay.
Well, that, and also the inspections are mandated by the Department of Agriculture and not the town.
And it's an annual inspection. I mean, not
Yeah.
that, I mean, obviously, I mean, I think Courtney would be welcome to anybody coming by and visiting the animals. So, I mean, it wouldn't be that Donna can't. Well, you know, I mean, she can
Wait,
pop by at any time, but
Did we put a time restriction on the other one to come back again for the
For
farm
the-
animal thing that we did? Did we say that Donna would inspect and come back again or something like that? Didn't we?
Well, we did, the one that was next to the house, the.
Right.
yeah, but we did that. I'm trying to recall now. We did it, I believe it was for 6 months and there was a reason.
That's kind of
I
what
was
I,
gonna
believe it's
review it
because she
bef-
didn't, I believe it's because she didn't have the animals, if I remember correctly.
I think you were just going to see how things were going.
Right. So why can't we do the same thing here?
Well, we got a lot of farms in this town. You can't do them for all of them. you
Right,
know.
but
don't even
we're
think-
only doing it for specific ones, like she's coming before for a waiver and the other lady also came for a waiver.
Mhm.
Could,
I don't think.
what is
I
wrong
don't
with
think
us?
I don't-
It depends on how many waivers you end up with, because it seems like, we may
That's-
get more and more with people
That's,
interests changing.
that is a concern. Judy raised it.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I mean, we don't obviously, I mean, we don't want to add another inspection on Donna for all establishments, because if we do
Right.
want to do them all.
No, this,
But-
whatever
maybe
we clear it. Yeah.
I am
Hey,
one.
Laura, I need to be
He's
a
got all of this
co-sponsor.
information, like I can only go by what I'm reading. And I'm reading that this is marvelous. And I love that your neighbors love it. My concern is we're going to 43 animals on one piece of property. Like what should we?
And it is appropriate
Yeah, but
based on her property.
okay.
Yeah, that, I don't think the care of the animals is
Yeah.
anything
No.
to do with it. I agree
Not
with
in this
you that
case.
They're cared for impeccably from all the letters.
Right.
We would have had complaints from neighbors a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's just the number. And I like Chris's point. I didn't even think about that, about finding out. I don't know if we can even, we can grant a waiver, but when we change things, then I guess Judy's right. How do we justify to other people that they can't do the same thing? Even though I know Donna said, she's got jurisdiction over it, and I know we do, but that's just the hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Precedent. What?
I think also is if we change the regulations, clearly we need to do it sooner than later, because like you said, this is our second waiver. But
Agreed.
if we change our regulations and we come up with a number, because that's the general standard, whether it's from the state or another town, whatever the case may be, but we had granted Courtney a permit for a couple more goats because they were small, her property is long, whatever the case may be, that's what she has provided us with enough information for us to give the waiver. If somebody, I'm not convinced that in the future, no matter what we change the animal regulations to, that somebody else isn't going to go, but I have 2 goats. I know it says I can only have 1, but I want 2 because they're little or whatever. So I think I have always thought that the regulations they're kind of vague. So, I mean, we might be able to find a happy medium, if you will, when we revise the regulations that's going to encompass all what we're talking about.
I have an idea that I think might put us all at a little bit of ease. And Judy, tell me if you think that this makes sense, because I think it touches on some of the things that what I think are very valid concerns that you have, and Ron too. What if we granted the waiver and made part of it on we're waiving the current regulation until the regulation changes. At such time, when we change the regulations, we review all the current cases that might be different.
So what are you going to do? And again, I know Courtney, you're on here, and it's not for you to respond. I'm just using you as the name. So you feel comfortable, let's say in 3 months, to look at Courtney and say, hey, we decided that we're only going to allow you to have 20 animals. So
Well, I mean, again,
I don't think that's appropriate. But she has provided, the applicant is providing us with enough information that we'll feel comfortable.
right, but
taking a vote.
my thought on that, Diane, and I get your reasoning, but my thought on that is that if we're sitting here granting a waiver tonight because we're comfortable that that quantity of animals on that size of property in that situation is correct, it's reasonable to assume that if we're going to revisit these regulations, we're probably going to relax them to the point where it's not going to affect future
Well, I
things. But
think for me,
it
and
gives us the opportunity to revisit them when the regulations change, if the regulations change.
Right.
And I have
Chris.
to say that this is exactly why, honestly, I went by the property. And of course, I asked Courtney if I could come for the inspection because
Mhm.
I don't know anything about goats. I really don't.
Mhm.
So I just assumed they were these big, large things. I had no idea. So really, because if we want to be that specific in a regulation, you're only allowed a miniature horse, you're allowed a full-size 1,200-pound horse.
Yeah.
So I think we have to have this discussion, and I think it's healthy. This is why we're aboard. I think it's a healthy
Right.
discussion, but I think we should really think about
Not
this.
realistic.
Right. Yeah, let me tag on to what Chris said. I
All right, I'm gonna
understand.
try, just so you know, I'm just gonna try to pull it together because we have a couple
Right,
of
right.
guests
We
who are
could-
half an
we-
hour over
we
already.
could
Okay.
we could change the regulation just in such a way the numbers are like what we have now, but there is nothing that forbids another person to come back and then increase the number to something else and ask for a waiver.
Mhm.
Well, I think
So
if you
that-
change a regulation, you need to stick to it instead of go, you know what I mean? If we're going to
But
change the regulations to allow more animals, then
I understand.
how are you going to continue to grant waivers? Pretty soon you're going to,
I understand people who wrote those regulations said the same thing before. That's why they wrote the regulations to stick to it. So
All right,
we are,
let's, can we
we
pull
have
this,
we have already granted a waiver for somebody.
all right, so
and
KJ,
we
hold
have-
on, I want to try to pull this
We have no
together
reason
here.
to deny this person.
Is anybody ready to make a motion? Mark, hold, please, just hang tight, Mark. I need to pull this together here because we have guests that are already over there.
Is it,
Can I
is it
just,
going to do any harm to give us some time to all go by? I feel like
Want to do a site visit, you think?
yeah,
Judy?
43 seems like a lot to me. Sorry.
So could we get time for a site visit and then come back?
I don't want to mess up.
If the board feels that adamant about it, I'm sure Courtney will welcome individually everybody going by the property.
Right.
But I really honestly wish you guys would have done that before the meeting because we had a couple of weeks to talk about it. That's why I did it. If the way that the board's going to lean is they're not going to take action on it or deny it, absolutely, I would recommend that. But I just
Okay, well, I'm comfortable. I certainly respect the desire to want to see it. But I'm in a position where personally, where I am confident in Diane and in you having seen it, and in particular, Donna having seen it, being the animal inspector. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we grant
Chris, just-
the waiver as requested.
Dr. Sony, we're not taking
Because you
comments
have
right
the
now, so please
board
put your hand
talking.
down. I'm sorry.
Anybody?
Laura, can you please mute him for me? I don't have Cove. Thank you.
Ron has something to say, I guess.
I know, but I did want,
Is this kind of to Chris' points? I was thinking about kind of what he said about granting it, at least temporarily. I wouldn't do it for 3 months. I would do it for the year. Is this a forever waiver or is this until the next license recycle period?
it's issued to the property owner on the current property.
Property owner okay, so it's forever. Okay.
But the
The
thing
current
is,
owner of the business.
But it's issued to the property owner. She doesn't own this business. She decides not to have kids and she still owns the animals. She doesn't have to get rid of not to the business.
Well,
But if Donna goes there in 6 months, a year, and obviously if there's a situation with the animals, it's going to be sitting right here with us again. So it very easily can be withdrawn.
Yeah.
If there's a concern.
I'm sure there isn't going to be any, and I trust your judgment. I trust Donna's judgment. I'm going to second Chris's motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye, Chris.
Aye, Diane.
Okay, Jim.
Judy?
I would really like to go visit the site. I
So
don't.
are you voting no or are you abstaining?
I thought I had made a motion to put it off to the next meeting so we could visit, but So I guess I'm abstaining from this one because of that.
Okay, I'm
Well,
just looking.
if that's the case, hang on a second. If Judy, if that wasn't officially a motion to put it off, then we have to vote on that motion before we can vote on this one because it was made before mine.
Sorry, I'm just looking at Mark sending, Mark DeSoni sending information to us. So I agree, if that was a motion, because I did not take that as a motion, if you were making a motion.
I would
to-
like the opportunity to go see it.
Okay, so if you want to make a motion for that, I did not take your comment as a motion. If you want to
Okay.
make a motion, we can vote on that.
I would like to make a motion
I
to,
second that.
for the next meeting, so that I have the opportunity, or anybody else on the board, to go and visit the property.
I
Just
second
check.
that.
I would just want to check the date on the meeting, the next meeting real
I will
quick.
make sure I go visit prior to the meeting.
Month. The next meeting is December 1st.
I can use your contact information, Courtney, on the, okay.
Okay,
Thank
so KG, you seconded the motion?
Yes.
Okay, do I have any further discussion? Sorry, too many things going on here. So all in favor?
Aye, KG.
In the interest of board harmony, I am going to vote in favor of that.
Okay, I am going to say no on that.
So it looks like we have 4 yes, 1
I
no.
was gonna say, Ron, did you vote? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
He had,
Yeah,
Okay,
but I think it's fair of her to want to go see it. I'll probably take an opportunity just for fun.
okay. So Courtney, we will notify you also. So we will, obviously you're more than welcome to, or we would like you to come to the next meeting. We'll send you the link as well as a time, and it will be verified at December 1st.
Great.
Correct?
Yeah.
Definitely. I would love to have you see it.
All
Thank you.
right, awesome.
Thank you very
Thank you for
much.
your time. Sorry it was so long.
That's okay. Thank you.
Well, it was a good education for
And you can
everybody.
stay
Yeah.
on our meeting too, if, again, you're welcome to stay with us.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Bye, Courtney.
Thank you.
All right, sorry about the delay, everyone, for the IMA, all these acronyms. Before I can, I just wanted to address, maybe she's gone. Kathy Rooney, you're not here, okay? I guess she left, okay? So again, Barry and Brian, I apologize that we were a little bit late on that discussion. If you want, do you want to just do a quick introduction for yourself of who you are and how you, I know you, but the rest of the board doesn't.
Thank you. Thank you to being the chairperson for the meeting, and thank you to all the board members as well for allowing us to join your meeting tonight too. So my name is Barry Keppert. I'm the director of the Public Health Department at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or MAPC. MAPC is a regional planning agency for the Metro Boston area, including the town of Ashland. I'm here with my colleague, Brian, who I'll let introduce himself.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian Luther. I'm a municipal services specialist at MAPC, and I'd like to take this time to thank Mark and wish him a happy retirement. We've been working with Mark for a few months now. Seems like an eternity, and I'm sure Barry's been working with them for longer than that. But just thank you for your service, and happy trails.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Mark. I can turn back to you, Diane, to see if how you'd like us to proceed.
Did you send something for Laura that you were going to share? No. Okay.
So I think Laura did distribute the
Yep.
the IMA that we've been working from and the
Yeah.
services. Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Sure.
So I guess just my thought is just to give an overview of where we are now, because of course we've had this on the agenda for quite a few months, and so Mark has kept up to speed the last few months. But we kind of want to know where we are now. I know me personally, want to know, is Holliston in, is Hudson in, is Southborough, like who's in, who's not, where we at. Again, this is just for me personally, we've had a position advertised for quite some time in the city of Framingham. Where are we going next? Because clearly we haven't brought anybody on. So kind of just giving us an update where we are now, because the board does know where we've been.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for framing it out that way too. So again, just real quickly too, that the concept, the idea of the shared public health nurse that we're looking at between town of Ashland, town of Holliston, town of Hudson, and the city of Framingham was something that was preceding the pandemic. So it was a position that was being valued that type of way, and definitely kind of coming upon the pandemic has kind of affected essentially kind of like both kind of the timing to some degree the availability of public health nurses for those types of positions. But essentially where we are now is that kind of working with the health department leads from each of the municipalities, so including Mark, but including the kind of the directors and lead agents in each of the municipalities. We've kind of built out the intermunicipal agreement, and so a copy of that is what was shared with you earlier with Laura, shared with you tonight with Laura, and that's really meant to reflect and be the foundation by which the kind of the shared service mechanism and framework for having that shared public health nurses there. Just as a real quick iteration on that too, why is it important, both kind of public health nursing and potentially doing it in a shared fashion? So one, in normal times, it's a vital role as we think about kind of making sure that our town, our residents kind of are on top of communicable disease issues, staying on top of kind of infectious disease reporting, thinking about immunizations, play a really important role as we think about emergency preparedness, the Medical Reserve Corps, work that they can do in that regard. Similarly, public health nurses also play a huge role in terms of public health promotion, something that Mark has continued to kind of remind us about, really getting messaging out there, being somebody who can kind of both model and talk about those behaviors that keep us healthier, whether we're really, really young or whether we're an older adult. Across that entire spectrum, what are the things that can happen? All those things are really, really important. But the emergency preparedness part is clearly, and the emergency response part is clearly something that's incredibly vital during this time as well too. And so that's essentially kind of something that both the IMA speaks to and how that's kind of laid out. Sitting behind the IMA is a scope of services that can be revisited annually that really speaks to some of the specific functions that the public health nurse would really do in that role as well too. I think we just want to again maintain the highlight in there too, that it really talks about kind of non-pandemic public health nurse functions. So it's really maintaining those functions, but kind of references that as that scope of services is revisited, you can think about potentially how that gets flexed and how you might need that need, realizing again, I think to the work that was noted earlier, I forget the gentleman who just left, to Officer Berman, who was doing the work for you all too, to kind of be able to help as your kind of your emergency response. It kind of goes to a whole other level in terms of what that staffing piece is as part of that work too. And so, Ed, sorry, and all that work that was happening in that regard too. So speaking to those particular pieces of it, the last part I'll note is that doing it in a shared version, the kind of really interesting thing there and neat part of that is that it's something where you don't have to necessarily have somebody who's kind of just part-time sitting alone by themselves. It's somebody who's now part of a larger network. So they can now really kind of interact on a kind of a larger scale with other public health nurses. So in the case of Framingham, you have their chief public health nurse, Kitty Mahoney, essentially, I think, who you have familiarity with as well too, who can kind of speak to and kind of lead some of those functions, but is someone who then can be able to kind of leverage the different resources within a particular municipality, but can also kind of leverage resources across those municipalities as well as part of it too. So that's essentially where we are now, where we have the IMA ready and the scope of services, at least for the first year. We're coming to each of the boards of health for them to review the IMA and hopefully kind of approve it or kind of suggest some changes to it so we can move ahead, making sure that it kind of fits with what you're looking for as well too. That's the level that we're right now. And so it's going through Holliston Board of Health. It's already gone through the Hudson Board of Health. Brian and I last night were at the Framingham Board of Health, and then we're also talking to Scott Moles, who's the lead agent at the Holliston Board of Health too. So it's coming to his board as well too. When it passes that layer, then the next layer moves up. For example, in the town of Ashland would be to go to the Board of Selectmen for essentially further adoption, the ability for the town to sign off on it too. Let me pause there, see if Brian wants to add anything, and then I think we can open it up for kind of comments and clarifications on what we've shared so far.
I think you covered it, Barry. I mean, you really covered everything, so I really have nothing to add.
Yeah, your this job description of the nurse on the table was fantastic and very crisp. Only thing that I see is that we normally do nurses take part in the hoarding cases. I don't know whether that's listed in that or not. Is that part that we want, Diane, or is that?
I didn't think it was. I don't recall it being included in the agreement because
It's not there, so I don't know whether
No.
that should be out of it or it's to be part of it. So
Yeah, so thank you for making that clarification. So we can go revisit the scope of services piece, because if that is a
I
function that
don't know
has been
whether
important, that's something
that's
we
what
can
we
go-
want.
Right.
Well, I know Mark, again, I'm glad he was here, not talking about him. I mean, Mark was the one who was dealing with the hoarding cases here. I know that he had brought Nancy on, but the board collectively I'll say made a decision, but basically made a decision that because we had limited hours, that we didn't want to use those resources on that. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be any guidance, assistance, whatever the case may be, if there's something. But we don't have a full-time person on our staff to take care of all of.
It also depends on the number of hoarding cases anyway. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one clarification I want to make too is, so like if the IMA is really like if you think like the Constitution, the scope of services can change year to year and even mid-year. So if there's something that you really want, we don't have to go through all board approvals for the scope of services. That's going to be the your health director's job to understand what you guys were looking for, and then bring that to the group, and then the group decides on the annual scope of services every year.
Yeah,
the IMA, the structure is really where that board approval needs to be
Right.
So it's definitely worth noting that the scope of services is much more flexible, and that's a deliberation between all the towns and what they want to allocate the resource to year to year.
Yeah, that brings a lot of comfort. Good.
I was just going to, sorry. So I was just going to say, so I don't recall, and again, Mark, if you want to jump in, I don't recall if our town council has approved it. I know because we do have a little bit of a different agreement, then obviously we'll have to send that to her, just to peek at it. And I mean, if the board's all set, unfortunately, Jen Ball, our assistant town manager, wanted to be on the meeting, just meet you as well as just go over this discussion. And she had a situation in her family that she couldn't be here. She's planning on watching the meeting, and I just told her, I know you guys are good about contacting you, so we can always let you know if she has any questions. But I assume there might be a couple of questions here, and then what we would do is we would send it to town council one more time, and then it would move forward to the select board. That sounds right as far as I know.
Yeah, and I would just add that Brian and I can be available too, should the assistant town manager want to speak with us directly. Glad to be available for that conversation as well.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Chris, do you have any questions? Ron, KG, Judy?
Just for Brian or Barry, have you seen this collaboration work pretty well with other communities that are kind of small like us and need a little bit more help with services? Have you had any experience with it? What's your opinion?
Good question.
So it's a really good question. So I mean, I think again, you probably kind of know really well too that so much of public health in Massachusetts really happens at the local level. So that's the predominant model when you look across Massachusetts in that piece. But we do have models when we look out at places like the Neshoba Valley offers kind of like a shared public health model. If you look out into the Franklin County Regional Council of Governments, they do some work around this as well too. They seem to be working well. That said, this is kind of a direction that a lot of places are moving in. And I didn't add this earlier, but the state is looking to do a lot more work to say essentially like we're looking to really have real credentials all the time, kind of at a set level for all public health nurses. So this kind of standard benchmark being set for essentially what credentials and what expertise someone is bringing into it. Work around certain kind of really kind of continued and stronger data reporting, essentially kind of across municipalities and up to the state level as well too. And so it feels like the type of thing where if it falls on kind of every municipality, it feels like a lot, but at that idea, if you can kind of consistently meet that in kind of a shared fashion, you may be able to make it more. So part of it is looking at the models that are kind of working well at the moment, but part of it is also thinking about how do you position for that potential future state. And that's the other thing that we're kind of anticipating in this work.
So with the current models, how long have some of those been in effect, and what's been your feedback from the municipalities that are engaged with one another with this, unless you don't have that?
So the feedback it'd be hard to say. I mean, I do know that the ones that have been in operation in some cases for like 10 to 15 years doing that work and that kind of deployment for it. I think Neshoba has been around for a bit that long. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we do know also happens that I think I would rely upon feedback is that a lot of public health nurses have these informal relationships across municipal borders where if someone's going vacation or someone needs to step away, the other one from another town will come into. And so there's a lot of cooperative activity that already happens. I think, and I let Mark speak to this too, they also have kind of public health nurses that will be part-time in one town and then part-time in a neighboring town as well too. So those things seem to be working well, and they seem to also kind of speak to essentially some of that consistency of having that same staff person being able to work across it. This is kind of a step a little more in the formal direction. So I wouldn't say it's kind of fully proven, but it's one of those things that seems to be the direction of a lot of work and can offer a model that's a bit different than making everybody feel like they have to kind of be able to do it on their own in every single case.
Now, Barry, just to stem off of that, hold on just one second. Barry, do you know what the situation is with the position in Framingham? Because I know it was posted and has been posted, and can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so I mean, so we continue to kind of look for that position. I think part of it is right now, given kind of the great demand on public health nurses that are being pulled upon from a variety of different degrees, that's kind of created the market kind of a little bit shallower than it would have been before. But we do know in the cases of essentially, I think Marlborough, and maybe Mark could speak to this as well too. I know in the case of Norwood, they have been hiring and they have been bringing on staff people in those regards too. So it has been possible. So one of the things you may just have to go look back in terms of how we're kind of documenting it, how we're kind of promoting that piece of it too. But it does seem like it's a field that's able to kind of fill too. So,
and I know Mark had given us updates of the salary appeared to also be a concern. So would that be revisited and possibly adjusted to maybe more of the market value or more of a enticement, if you will?
I think I would say that could be a possibility in order to be the competing part of it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Judy?
My big question on this nurse, because there's so many towns involved, is they have to keep documents for each of these towns so that the towns know the percentage that they're getting and how much time that is being spent. And is this going to be like heavily data kind of stuff more than actually doing the nursing? Are we making this more of a administrative by having it so many towns? That's one thing I've just been thinking of.
No, that's a fair question. So I think part of it is that I think really the emphasis is on the service part, not on the administration part too. And so I think part of Framingham, by essentially being the kind of the lead municipality in it, provides a bit of that backbone to be able to kind of take care of some of the admin pieces that might be kind of overwhelming or larger to provide that support.
Right.
The second part of it, I would say, is that some of the reporting is a requirement. So as it comes down to like immunizations,
right.
Reporting through the Maven system, that just has to happen. And so that's kind of an inherent part of the job as part of it too. So we are kind of thinking into the future of how we can kind of continue to find other potential sources to support the admin side of it, to kind of be able to kind of loosen up that part of it. But at least in the starting point, the emphasis is much more on the service than trying to kind of make it beyond the kind of the reporting and the data piece.
I can imagine that's going to be a tough.
Diane, I think we do have our Concom agent being shared with another town anyway. So we are working on a local basis, shared agents, right?
I was just going to say, I know we have that with animal control. We
Right.
have shared services for, we don't have shared Concom now though.
Oh, she lived. She
Yeah,
used
but
to
we
do
do
it for
have,
Upton
we
before.
do have an IMA with the town of Holliston for
Okay.
our animal control services.
So
Yeah, so, Ed, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question on this. Have you thought about, because I know being a nurse too, I know most nurses really don't want full-time. Have you thought about doing a job share where you have two, like for example, two 20-hour nurses sharing it to try to maybe recruit people?
I mean, that's a good question. It's a good question. I think it's something to consider. I think at this point, we've still been really kind of looking at the full-time position of someone moving that alarm. But to Diane's earlier point, I think as we move forward and if we see essentially kind of what the responsiveness is and whether it's adjustment to the salary or potentially adjustment to position, obviously we want to have that conversation with the health directors and then with their boards around that too. But I think at this point, we're thinking the full-time may work, but I think that's a really great alternative if for some reason we're running into barriers there.
But I have so many questions in my head.
are we required to take any action now or?
Well, I might just to invite Mark, sorry, and I kind of jumped in talking a lot, so thank you for humoring me. But Mark, to just again, to echo what Brian said, thank you for your service and thank you for helping us get here too. But just also wanted to invite you in to see if there's any other context or information you'd want to provide.
Yeah, I
Well, thank you for that. And, you know, your presentation was perfect. And again, just a quick note, the state for years now, at least for 10 years, has been trying to work on shared services, regionalizing. And again, the message I think is that you will indeed be taking care of sometimes a need that wasn't being addressed. And as time goes on, you know, as noted just here, your IMA, the scope of services will change. It's a living document, and I expect as more and more information is gathered from the three towns and the one city, we may down the road see a need for additional resources.
So because Mark has retired, we do have people who are filling in until we do hire somebody. So I believe I will probably, if there's meetings and so forth again, I'll probably jump on just to see, you know, keep things flowing and notifying the board. As far as I know, what action you need to take from, what action the board needs to take is you need the vote. I can't talk, I apologize. To take a vote tonight to move forward with the IMA. And then, like I said, then it goes to town council, and from town council, it will go to the select board. And that's the procedures, correct?
If you need a motion, I'm willing to make that motion.
Please do, KG.
Yeah, we agree to move on with the IMA agreement subject to the town council's approval or review, I should say.
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye, KG.
Hi, Chris.
Aye, Diane.
Aye,
All right,
Steve.
thank you, guys. I think we're good for tonight. And like I said, we have that via email, and I will send that to council, and I will also send it to Jen Ball, who's our assistant town manager. And then we'll wait to get any comments or feedback, and then we'll be in touch with you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you for time on your agenda tonight.
Yeah,
Thank you very
feel
much.
free to reach out to us anytime if you have any additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Good evening. Thank you all.
Take care. You can stay on too, like I said to everybody else.
There's something better to do.
Yeah, well. So Kathy Rooney actually popped off. I didn't know if she was here for the next discussion, but I just, so I had asked Laura to put on the irrigation well for Robert Hill Way. I know we've been eager to find out what their intentions are at the property. After much conversation with, I'll say the parties involved, the owner's representative, the project manager, I told them that we would be pulling it from the agenda tonight. The details haven't been fully ironed out, and I want them to work out their details on their end before we have a public discussion for the board. Again, they just have some things that they need to work out on their end before we deal with what we have to. So again, I'm going to say that we're going to pull that from the agenda. I plan on having it at the next agenda on December 1st. Just again, I'm just going to give a quick overview just to let you know is so what we were going to discuss tonight was a new well on, I'll call it lot 1. It's actually called phase 1. And I don't know that that's really what their intention is, again, after talking to the people involved. So we'll let them figure it out on their end, talk to their people, as we say, and get back to us. I don't see anybody else here that was here for the discussion. So everybody understand where I was kind of going with that? Okay, great, awesome. All right, so budget review. So Mark is here, but I'm going to play Mark for a minute. I will review the budget report with you. And you know, there's a couple of things just with the transition. So in general, I mean, of course, the board wants to look at this, but in general, this is the department head as well as management's purview. I mean, we can look at it and make suggestions to it. So it's good to have it, but you know, we just want to make sure that we don't.
Diane, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I have to leave. My grandchildren are here, so.
Oh, we saw them in the background, but don't.
That's right. They came here for my post-birthday event. Sorry, and then
That's
continue
okay.
the
Thanks,
meeting.
KG.
Good luck for the rest of the meeting.
Happy birthday, KG.
Thank you.
It's your birthday. I thought you said your grandson's birthday.
My birthday. So they brought something.
Happy birthday.
They brought
Happy
a big.
birthday.
Not today, but mine was 13, so it's over. So they came after that. So
That's awesome.
Very nice.
all right.
Well,
Thank you.
enjoy. Take care.
Appreciate it. Bye bye.
My official day of retirement was your birthday, KG. Happy birthday.
Hopefully, it was not the reason.
so I don't know, again, I'm hoping people look at this stuff before the meeting, so I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Diane, I can just highlight 3 of the line items if you want. The landfill contracted services, management decided to pay a previous bill. So they know that line item is going to be deficient by the end of the fiscal year, but they are understanding of that and may ask for a transfer for the amount of money they had to use presently to resolve some old billing with the previous company known as ATC. So again, that has been a decision that was made to, let me just, I don't know if you can still hear me. That was a decision that was made through management. The other note is you'll see, and Ed, if you're still here, is the expenses for COVID. You'll see the nursing general services is a little bit exceeding what you would expect for 50% of the $10,000. But also you're going to see that we have utilized most of the funding for COVID-19 nursing expenses. Again, I will leave that up to management as well as the board as it relates to how you want to handle that from that point on. I'm not for sure if they're going to look at the CARES Act, which has to, you have to
The
have your-
CARES Act automatically covers this line item, Mark. So
Okay.
anything that's in the general fund budgets for COVID expenses.
It's just that December 30th date, I hope they'll extend some of the spending because I don't think you'll have a relaxation in nursing services for COVID. I think you'll still be spending quite a bit. As Ed noted, we have so many cases going on and it does take a lot of resources. And that was pretty much my summary.
And I know, Mark, you had done some work on the nurses budget. So actually it's under the 50% now. So I think they made those adjustments for you that you were working with the finance director with, because it's actually running below 50. So it looks like it's at 40.
That's a good point. It should be 50% by December 31st. I don't know if it will make it to that. But again, we're trying to keep that line item within its typical justification for 5 hours per week. Again, it's the COVID that's overrunning all the budgets, I'm sure. It just demands a lot of resources.
Yep. Does anybody have any questions on the budget?
No.
No? Okay, moving on. All right. Meeting minutes from October 20th. Again, does anybody have any questions, comments, concern? If not, I'll take a motion.
To accept them.
Thank you, Judy. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Hi, Judy.
Hi,
Hi,
Diane.
Chris.
All right. So Chris already said, well, I know it says it here, but Chris already said the meeting is December 1st. A couple of things. I know we normally meet once in December, just because things are usually a little hectic. If the board wants to, we could look at the calendar. I know we told Courtney the 1st, we could obviously contact her. If everybody feels that they want to still follow that, we could change the date and do one meeting, maybe in the middle of the month. Of course, we normally have a holiday gathering, which is not appropriate. Well, I was just going to say, I would say postpone because again, the amount of people that would go, the group. I guess technically, well, we can talk about that. I was going to say technically it'd be 6 of us, but I also, and again, even with the same thing with Mark, I was hoping that we could plan something for a get together. All right, Mark, I can't shut your video off. So though, I think both of those things, I did talk to Mark directly. I mean, maybe we could, once things, I don't know when, but once things settle down, maybe we can have both.
Yes.
Diane, I think it might be, this is my thought, I'll just throw it out to everybody. I think having the meeting on the 1st might be a good idea because what it does is it gives us a good buffer of time leading to the middle of the month if an emergency situation comes up that requires us to meet. Like a hearing that has to happen or, something that, an emergency situation that really needs us. If we don't plan a meeting until the 15th, I mean, obviously we're still going to get together for an emergency situation, but at least if we get all the business that we have to get done on the 1st, then, we can just leave the rest for an emergency situation.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that as long as everybody, if everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's just my thought. I throw it out to everybody.
I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
Is everybody else good with that? We'll shoot for the 1st, and if need be, we will set another meeting. We
Okay,
can talk about that night.
all right.
Okay.
I'd like to also, to Chris's point, I don't want to hold up Courtney anymore.
Right.
Right, exactly, yeah.
All right, so items for the next agenda. I know, of course, we have Courtney Arsenault. I'm automatically just going to put a placeholder for the IMA, just in case we need to discuss it again, review something, whatever, have a discussion.
Put a placeholder. Laura's working on getting a training set up. So if we could discuss how many people, we're going to invite, where we're going to get the list from. I know that I think Mike has a list, but a lot of people on it maybe have to get updated, and how we can reach out to Mike maybe and ask him, for ideas, for contact.
Mike's list is a contact, like literally it's one contact for MRC. So it's a bunch of email addresses, no names, no addresses, no information. I mean, unless he can make sense of it, which I know Mark and I met with him, it didn't appear that we could make much sense of it. I think we should work from the list that we have, because the people that Laura and Mark have in the database now are actually, they know where they're at with their approval. They're up to date. So I know that Laura and you were working on a date. Did we come up with a date yet for that?
Yeah, I think it was it January 12th?
Yeah.
And that's a virtual training, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So how many people do you have on your list?
I believe maybe 14.
So if they all wanted to go, then 100 can go, and we should open it up to the other towns as was it Roberta suggested that, or somebody else?
Right. Yep, she did.
So even with that, when we get to that point, I mean, whether all the board members are actually members of the MRC, I'm assuming they would want to attend, so we can post a meeting. So I just want to make sure that we include our board.
Oh, yeah.
Our board with the the members who are going to attend, and then, like you said, if we have, so to speak, a sign up to know who's attending, then we can, like I said, open it up. That would be good.
Mike did say that once we have the details, he'll email his larger list and include invite for signing on again.
So again, just my 2 cents on that. I just don't feel it's appropriate, because I've been trying to work on that list, and part of my frustration with this is for about 6 months or so, that list is not, it's, if you guys here don't know my personal email address, you don't know that that's me. So we have a bunch of email addresses that are not connected to a person. We don't even know who they are. So I don't want to invite people to a meeting and then say, oops, sorry, you're not approved. You need to do, this, that, and the other thing before you can attend it. My understanding is we're trying to do these trainings for the active current members of our group, and that's 14 people.
Okay.
If we think that we could do a little bit more, educate, like getting those people, like maybe this is the time we're doing a training, but you have to do this before you can attend. So not maybe invite them to the meeting, but maybe just let them know we're starting to do.
If we could get that email list to just reach out to them, Diane, like I'm happy to send something saying you're receiving this because in the past you
expressed.
That would be awesome. Yeah, and you will be, I mean, you need to respond and let us know, and and kind of put it.
I don't know how we get the list. Should I reach out to Mike or?
I think I would have to double check my email, but I know that he sent it over at one time, but I think you have it, Laura, as well, right?
I asked him to send it. I may have it. It was, it needed some work, but we can ask him to send it again. And we can also, maybe once we have the training information, put it out on Facebook or, I don't know, what do you think about that? Or
I think it's got to be people that are already like identified and have at least
as interest. Yeah.
They've gotten core read and SOAR read, and the training's going to be beneficial.
And you're on mute, Diane.
You see my hands moving. You don't know what I'm saying. I just said, I think it would be a good opportunity to get people energized. Like, oh, we're going to be doing a training. Let's get you. Yeah. So I think it would be a good tool.
So I'll work on a letter tomorrow, and I'll run it by you, Diane.
Sure.
And just to to say in the past you were active. We'd love to hear from you. We don't know who you, I won't say we don't know who you are, but you know what I mean?
We're updating our contact list.
Yeah, so,
All
right.
right, so with that said, I will put the MRC on the agenda for next month, so we'll get an update on where we're at.
good.
And you sent my email, Diane, that said that Roberta, I believe, wants to attend a meeting because she wants to go over the mass response, which means that anybody who's a volunteer will have to register for mass response.
And again, I did see your email, and again, my thought is we have 14 people that we have to help get on to mass response. So I'm just looking to see exactly what she said in her email. This needs to be done by March. Okay, so
Yes,
again, it needs to be done by March, but I mean, I feel like I have talked about this till I'm blue in the face about them registering, you know. So I don't think I can contact. I don't think we need her to come to a meeting and explain it, but I think we need to ask her to help us get to that point. Help us get those people to do that versus come and notify the board. Is everybody familiar with what we're talking about?
I got a message about it, but I was unclear.
Well, you know what? I'll put it on the next meeting because I don't want to break any open meeting laws. I'll put it on the next meeting to discuss, and I'll talk to Roberta, see if we actually want her here or, but I'll check. I mean, if it's something new, I will have her on to talk to the board. If it's the same, we'll just see if we can get her assistance in getting that done for our members.
That would be great.
Anybody?
Diane, I don't know if it's appropriate to put it on our agenda because it might actually be something that the town manager would do, but would it be something that at our next meeting, we would just kind of talk to the public about what the current status of our health agent position is?
Sure, we could, sure.
I mean, just to inform, I mean, since it's a public meeting and the public watches us, I mean, today we took the time to acknowledge Mark's retirement, but just to kind of let the public know where that position stands with the town, I think it'd be a nice thing to just mention.
I will check into that. And also, again, because I don't want to break open meeting, I don't want to get into too much discussion, but I know there's been a couple of emails asking us to have a discussion publicly about cell towers. I know CC Doucette has been very instrumental about coming and educating us. And to me, it's a lot. It's a lot for me to take in. I did not, and I think I was supposed to, but I did not look into our jurisdiction. My knowledge, which is probably very limited on cell towers, is we don't have any jurisdiction. So we could put it on or have it as a citizens participation discussion, but I don't believe there's any action that the board would take. I mean, it might be this is what we feel.
Yeah, I think it's whether or not the board, you know, if we want to individually have opinions on it, talk about it at the board and decide if we can collectively as a board come to a decision that we have no stance on this, we take no position, or we take one position either or against.
Recommendation.
Yeah, right.
That's what I thought. I just didn't know if the board wanted to, I guess we could put it as an agenda item and have Florence Seidel is the one who actually reached out. So I'm not sure if she wants to make an additional presentation or same thing, ask for.
Yeah, the only thing, Diane, that I would really want to be adamant about, because we've seen this more than once where someone comes in, we say, you know, please be respectful of our time, take 20 minutes, and they take an hour and a half and then go on and ask questions later in the meeting and take up more time with. So I think we have to be very specific on the amount of time and that's it.
Well, if the board's okay with it, what I'll do is I'll reach out to the two parties who reached out to us collectively and see what their intention is, if they want to just give us some information, if they're looking for us to support a letter, those type of things, and then see what kind of a placeholder we'll put on. I mean, they might want to come during citizens participation and just have a few words. So I'll reach out and we'll, so I put that on my note for the next meeting is cell tower.
And Mark did reach out to MAHB, right, Mark? And he got some response from one of the people from MAHB.
Yes, that is correct, Laura. It was the gentleman that used to be actually over at the Framingham Board of Health reached out. Did we share that? Did that get shared
I
with the
believe
board?
so.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I could have missed it, so I apologize.
He's an attorney. He used to be, I think, the chair over in Framingham. I can't think of his name.
Oh,
right
Mike
off.
Hugo. Mike Hugo.
Yes, thank you,
Yes.
Chris. That was driving me nuts. Thank you
Yeah.
for remembering his name. Yes, Mike sent something over.
Mark, do you recall, just in, I mean, again, well, we'll talk about the next, but I just don't want to, again, be in any type of violation. We'll, I'll take a peek at the email, and if anybody needs it, I can resend it out, or Laura can resend it out.
Mhm.
All right, does anybody have anything else for either the next meeting or anything for tonight?
Diane, I'm sorry if I missed it. Is the Robert Hill Way still on there in case they get their stuff together and we need to chat about it, even if you defer it again, if there's nothing? Do you need to put it on or no?
It is my intention to put it on.
Okay.
I'm not too, again, between now and then, I don't know if there's any action that we need to take. I'm not too sure what.
No, I'm just saying if they reach their decision, if
Yeah,
it's.
it's on my list.
Then we just.
Yeah.
forward to the Next.
Yep. And with that said, I did say, because we're pulling it last minute, I just said, if we need to, if they need something quicker, I mean, it's an irrigation well, so
Right.
they're not using it now or not planning on it, so it's not really an emergency.
Right.
Or I shouldn't say needs to be expedited, but I explained to them, we'll work with them if they need to have something sooner.
Okay.
So once I find out, and then even with that said, even if there's a conclusion and we don't need to take action, I'll just send out an email just as a notification to close that out.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, if nobody has anything else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Judy.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi, Chris.
Everybody have a
Diane.
great, safe Thanksgiving.
Happy
And
Yes.
you too.
Happy
And Mark,
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you for all your years of service. We appreciate
He
it.
left
and,
already. Oh, no, there he is. Yes, Mark, thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your retirement.
And as I said to Mark, I said, I'm not going to say goodbye. I said, oh, I'll see you soon.
Thank you all.
See you
Maybe
later.
I'll be the same. I'll see you guys soon. Take care.
All right, Mark, take care. All right, have a good night, everyone.
Good
You
night.
too.